The Wolfpack finished with a 9-4 record last season. There are high hopes for 2024. Tonight, I am joined by NC State and the College Huddle's Red White podcast to give some insight on what to expect for the upcoming season. Also, with me is the College Huddle's Rec Talk out of Georgia Tech. All of this next on the ACC College Huddle. Welcome in tonight to another episode of the ACC College Huddle. I'm your host, Jeff Lowe, and I'm joined tonight by the Red White podcast and Evan and Justin from the Rec Talk podcast out of Georgia Tech. How's everybody doing tonight?
Good.
Doing good.
All right. So tonight we want to talk a little bit NC State football. Last season, NC State was 9-4. They are returning 12 starters, I believe, 5 up from the offense, 6 defensive, a kicker. You got 15 players in the transfer portal. And I believe, according to 24/7 Sports, y'all's portal class was ranked 18th nationally. So that's not too bad. But one of your acquisitions was Grayson McCall out of Coastal Carolina. And once again, I kind of use 24/7 Sports as my resource. They had him ranked as the number 3 quarterback in the ACC. What are your expectations of Grayson?
I've been a huge Grayson McCall fanboy for the longest time. When he was down at Coastal, I loved what they did. I love how he ran the offense. So to get him to come to State, it's been fantastic. My expectations, I think everybody's expectations are to elevate the offense. I mean, he's a proven product, multiple time conference player of the year. He's done it all. He's got nothing left to prove. And I understand the people that say, it's Jamie Chadwell's system. He didn't look as good last year. Well, that's Tim Beck, right? We had Tim Beck as offense coordinator. Everybody in Raleigh knows nobody's offense looks good with Tim Beck. So I don't put that on him. I am ecstatic that he is going to be our signal caller. I think he is going to be a difference maker for us. And he doesn't even have to do all things he was doing at Coastal because he's got more weapons around him. So, it all starts and ends with Grayson McCall, in my opinion. I just couldn't be happier that he's in Raleigh.
I'd say what had stood out to me was I think his accuracy. I think he's 70% in his career at Coastal Carolina completion percentage, and he takes care of the ball too. I think maybe he only threw 13 or 14 interceptions in his whole career at Coastal Carolina. So that kind of stood out to me as well.
Yeah, he takes care of the ball. He makes the right decisions. He's just a gamer, and guys like playing with him. You just ask around, you look around and see what he's done in the past, and it's just been there's nothing but praise for the kid. And I understand it's a level up in competition, but he won 1 billion games at Coastal, and just he's a proven commodity. For him to be number 3 quarterback in the ACC, who are you going to put? Who's ahead of him right now?
They had Cam Ward, and the one that's for me, potentially, I don't know. DJ Ukulele, he has to prove it for me. I was not a big fan at Clemson of his.
I think 24/7 really underrated Grayson McCall in the transfer portal. So you say we're 18th. I think he was like the 10th quarterback or something like that in the transfer portal list. You can't tell me there's 9 other quarterbacks that these people would want. There's no chance coming out of the portal.
What about Haynes King, Justin? I know we talked a few weeks ago about Haynes King too. I think he was a good pickup, or good. I'm not a good pickup, but
no, he was.
Dang, my mind just went. I was looking at my notes from that show, and crazy enough, and I don't know what site I was looking at the time, but they had him ranked when we did the show as a number 3. Was he 6th? Okay.
It was something like that. And here's
I thought he was a little higher than that.
Well, he
But
should be. And look, he had a lot of turnover issues last year. I think he had like 16, 17 interceptions in a season. Can't do it,
right.
right? So I get that. What I don't get is that all these players that have never played a down of ACC football are ranked this high. And I get Grace McCall's a great quarterback, right? He's a great quarterback. He does have something to prove, though. He's got to do it at the D1 level.
Let's not say D1 level. The kid went undefeated 2 years in a row at Coastal Carolina. I mean, they're not exactly Division II. So
No, you say at the Power 5 level, I
At the
guess.
Power
Power
Five
5
level.
level.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what
yeah.
he's got to do it at the Power 5 level.
I get it. I get it.
All those rankings are, you just don't know till they take the field anyway. They had Virginia Calandria. I know our team has been bad for several years. And maybe because obviously I watched my team, but Calandria, I think they had him down like 15th. And I see
love Calandria.
I see a ton of potential in that guy, but
yeah, they don't base it on potential though. I mean, I agree with you. I loved him. I was hoping he would get in the portal. He's a gamer. He's got a big arm.
Right.
He's fun to watch. He does make some, crazy plays and
he does. Yeah,
make some ridiculous choices. But for a freshman,
he was a true freshman out there.
Yeah, fantastic.
Anyway, but so moving on to the depth on the offensive line, I believe y'all have 13 returners, 4 newcomers. Offensive tackle Anthony Belton finished third team All ACC in 2023. Phil Steele, I believe, has him as a 4th team All ACC. What are your thoughts on Belton and the rest of the offensive line? You seem to have a lot of depth there.
Yeah, they did return a bunch of offensive linemen, Belton included, bringing Zeke Carell to run center, which I think is be a nice piece there. It's funny about Belton, and I was just talking with my folks recently. I know he's highly rated. I know he's a guy that gets a lot of draft love and all that. To me, and this is like the one criticism I'll say, he looks stiff, and I don't ever see it with him. But I'm not a scout with it by any means, but he's an enormous human being, and they love his ability and maybe his potential. I think he's got to put it all together. And to me, I just think I feel like he's stiff in comparison to what we've had in the past, like with Icky and some of the other guys. But the line should be okay. I think 2J's doing a good job of getting them better. And if you really break down, look at the film of the production last year, the line got a lot of heat, but a lot of it wasn't their fault, to be honest. And we really only had one player that could do anything with the ball. So there's a bit of I think they'll be better this year because the pieces around them are going to be better. But they've also gotten older in that part. But yeah, I'm not too concerned about them. I am concerned about them in the second game of the year against Tennessee. Tennessee's D line is legit, so we'll find out a lot in that game.
Right. So last year, I know your running back room was a little bit on the thin side, but this is another transfer portal that you guys got. Jordan Waters out of Duke, 12 touchdowns a year ago, 753 yards. What are your thoughts on the running back room?
I think the running back room has been a huge upgrade. Not only did we get Jordan Waters, who I'm ecstatic for, he's a real running back. I think he is a difference maker. We haven't had a game-changing running back in quite some time. I mean, it's been a long time. I think it's been since Reggie Gillespie since we had a 1,000-yard back, and that was 2018 or something like that. I don't remember. It was a while ago, right? We just haven't had the players back there. Now Kendrick Raphael, who was played here last year, and I think he's gotten a lot of love in the spring. Said he's really developed, put on some weight, done a lot of good things. I think he and Jordan Waters will probably take the load. We also got Dylan Smothers, Hollywood Smothers from Oklahoma, kid from Charlotte who we really wanted out of high school, 4-star running back, kind of smaller. I won't say scat back type, but I think he'll probably move in and out of the backfield, and they'll use him in different ways. But he is a dynamic player. I think they upgraded the running back room. Jordan Waters he's a stud, and I think they're going to lean on him heavy. We just haven't had a consistent running game in a long time, and I think that changes this year.
Okay. Yeah. So one of your top returning players would be a wide receiver, Kevin Concepcion. He's a preseason, I believe, third team All American, first team All ACC according to Phil Steele. He led all freshmen in yards and touchdowns last season. I think maybe y'all are a little weaker at that last season, but I think your cover's been a little bit replenished. 5 newcomers to go along with the 4 from last season's team. How do you think all that's going to shake out?
Yeah, Concepcion, like I said, he was the one-man show last year. Like everybody knew he was getting the ball, and he still was effective. He was our best running back. He was our best wide receiver. I mean, you put him any position in, he was the best one we had. And I think this year they've changed that quite a bit. They brought in, 5-star freshman from Ohio State. I know he didn't get on the field at Ohio State, but who does? I heard that wide receiver room is deep. Noah Rogers, kid from our area that we wanted out of high school. He comes back. Wesley Grimes from Wake Forest, another kid we really wanted out of high school. Again, from Raleigh. He's coming to state. And then they brought in Joe Leaf, the tight end from UConn, one of the top tight ends in the transfer portal. I mean, he is, if you look at contested catch rate, he's the highest contested catch rate of any tight end last year. That's including Brock Bowers. He's legit, right? So I think we've upgraded our wide receiver room dramatically in the portal, but they've also picked up 4-star Terrell Anderson out of Georgia. He's fantastic kid. And Jonathan Paylor, who's a local kid from NC. He's a small kid, but he's built like a tank. And I think he will get a lot of run in different positions too. So this year is different. They shouldn't have to lean on Concepcion. They have enough options. I think this team it's going to be all about the offense this year, and they have definitely, restocked, so to speak, the skill players, which we haven't had this many, high quality players in a long time.
And you guys, of course, you have your upgraded quarterback too, getting the ball out.
Right.
Brennan Armstrong, he just wasn't the guy last year. I really thought he was going to do something with you guys, considering Robert and I had come to NC State. Because
sorry to cut you off. I think they did him a disservice, right? The whole MJ Morris thing was super weird. I mean, that's well documented, but they also didn't let Brennan Armstrong be Brennan Armstrong, right? The offense in the first half of the year was not the same as the offense in the second half of the year. And, credit Brennan Armstrong, you get benched and then they ask you to come back in and be the starter, and he doesn't pout. He doesn't do any of these things. And he excelled. I mean, we look at his production in the last 6 games was phenomenal. And, you can say he underperformed. Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that given his production at Virginia was off the charts. But I don't think they really let him do the things that he could do well until later in the year. And I hope that Dave Dorn and his staff have learned from their mistakes where, hey, let's let them do these things. Let's not, stop playing with our hands behind our back, right? Let them do the things they're good at, right? Let them get out and run. Let them do the, scramble drills and carry the ball and just be a football player. And they did that late in the year, and his production, got us to close the season with, just fantastic play. So it wasn't what you would expect. I was really happy with the way it ended with him.
I was pulling for him to do well at NC State because when Bronco Mendenhall was at Virginia, he was excelling, and really there was talks that he was potentially going to come out and go to the NFL draft, and he came back when Bronco left. And and Tony Elliott came in. I mean, the offense was just so different, and they didn't let him do the things he can do. But when Robert and I went to NC State, I really thought, I was like, well, that's good for him, because he's, unfortunately for him, if he had just went to that NFL draft, I don't know if he'd got drafted or not his last year after Bronco Mendenhall was the coach. But I guess
is that a concern for your staff that you had? I mean, wasn't this kid the all-time leading passer for Virginia? Like, do you have any concerns with new players coming in? Like, man, are we going to be able to develop them the way they need to be developed? Or is there anyone on
Yeah,
your staff that might need to go at the end of the season?
You know, it was interesting, and it's a very valid question, right? I think it all, and we've seen this before. We've seen it before with Dave Doran in the defense and how it was run, as he brought Tony Gibson in and kind of didn't let him do his thing, right? They were still running Huxtable's offense, and eventually he's like, "All right, do what you want to do." And our defense has been, reliable the last few years, and I think it was the same thing with Robert and I. And I think a part of it is, and I didn't really know what he had on offense, because a couple of those guys didn't come in the spring; they came in summer. I think I have a little bit more faith this year that they're not going to play tight and conservative, and they're going to let Anai do the things Anai wants to do, especially when you have a signal caller that has proven to be a reliable decision maker. I think that's the biggest thing.
Yep.
So moving on to your defense, you guys lost linebacker Peyton Wilson to the NFL. What I've read, Sean Brown is converting from safety to linebacker and is in line to replace Wilson. Phil Steele listed Brown as a fourth-team All-ACC. Then you have Caden Fordham, who Phil Steele has a third-team All-ACC. What are your thoughts on the linebacking group?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you go from Peyton Wilson to anybody,
right,
it's going to be a drop off. I mean, Peyton Wilson, one of my all-time favorite NC State players, one of my all-time favorite football players to watch. He was everything to this unit. Not only just a leader, but his numbers were off the charts. You don't replace Peyton Wilson. You hope you can get production from others, and kind of offset some of that. And I think they will. Caden Fordham shows some flashes. He's not going to be Peyton Wilson. He's going to get a lot of Peyton Wilson comparisons. Sean Brown played like a linebacker, and I think a lot of people thought he was going to be a linebacker, but it's his first year playing that position. It's kind of it does concern me a little bit. I think he can do it, but he hasn't done it before. There's a reason they were bringing in Cam Riley from Auburn, who eventually decided to go to Florida State at the very last second, and that one really hurt us. But yeah, the linebacker position is one that we rely on to make plays in this defense. Is 3-3-5, but I think they'll be serviceable, but they have a lot to prove. That's probably the right way to say that.
Well, on your defensive line, you have Devin Van, who led the team in sacks last season.
I'm here. Sorry.
Oh, you're good.
Sorry, my family came home. I had to close my door.
That'd be a great way to end the show. Just miss
just get up
it's a walk off. Once your guy Peyton Wilson left, you left with him. Oh man, yeah. Devin Van led the team in sacks last season, and I referenced Phil Steele a lot, but he had him as fourth team All ACC. How about thoughts on the D line?
Yeah, D line is, I've heard it being called a weakness, and I heard it's being called a potential strength, right? I love Davin Van. I think he is phenomenal. His production's great in this system. Brandon Cleveland really had a fantastic year last year, kind of underrated. Are we going to be able to get pressure? Running the 3-3-5, it's all predicated on, can your D line occupy the offensive line and give space to your linebackers to let them make plays. I think this D line has the potential to do it. Red Hibbler was fantastic off the edge, getting a lot of pressures. I'm surprised he wasn't our sack leader, but there's potential there. But I think there's some stuff to prove. But Davin Van, Brandon Cleveland are the anchors in that line, and they, I expect big things from both of those guys.
In your secondary, I know you guys have Aiden White returning, and I think he entered the transfer portal and then decided to come back. But this is they have him listed as fourth as preseason All-American, fourth team, and Phil still has him first team All-ACC. Any thoughts on the secondary?
Yeah, anytime you can get, and actually this applies to Concepcion too, you can get Concepcion and Aiden White back in the era of a transfer portal, and your NC State, your collective has done a phenomenal job keeping those two guys. Aiden White's as locked down as a corner as you'll get. Teams didn't even try to throw his way last year, just because he was unbelievable. And he's been like that since he was a freshman. He's been a phenomenal quarter. The problem is going to be the other side. Shy Battle is gone. He was a 4-star kid coming out of high school, and he was super reliable. Brandon Cisse played a lot last year, but now he's going to have to step up in the starting role. So it's going to be interesting to see how he does. And then you got the safeties around him too are going to be relied on to help. Bishop Fitzgerald was one of the top JUCO safety coming out of JUCO last year, and he showed in flashes. Right, he didn't have to play a whole lot, but he's got that potential there. I'm gonna mess his name up because I can't remember. Javon Carter, I think, was the kid from Ohio State. Was the number 1 rated safety coming out of high school. He had some injury issues at Ohio State, didn't get on the field. If he recovers and has that potential, the secondary has the ability to make some plays. I don't know if your corners are going to be as locked down as they were last year because you had Aiden White and Shy Battle, but I think the combination of those 4 guys will help keep the production at a very high level. And I think teams will struggle to really find too much success throwing on those guys.
Is there anyone else on the roster that you guys we may not have talked about or heard much of that we need to keep an eye out for this season?
Yeah, I mean, I already mentioned him, tight end Justin Jolie. I think he's going to be phenomenal. He's an unbelievable athlete. And then we got a bunch of guys we don't know what to expect, right? I think Noah Rogers coming out of Ohio State. He's again a 5-star kid, and it came in the spring. Everybody's like, okay, he's legit, right? I mean, that was basically the reactions, like he's the real deal. Those guys are going to be the difference makers. And like you said, Jordan Waters, I think we're going to rely heavily on him. We've got so many new pieces on offense. Like it could be all of them, right? I don't really know. It's going to be interesting to see how they use them and how that dynamic shakes out. But I think there's a lot of talent. It's just going to be different than we've had in the years past, where they're going to rely on the offense as opposed to relying on the defense. And how Dave Doran handles that will be interesting because he's just, he's a defensive coach. He's been like that forever. He's been conservative. He's slowly starting to, be a little bit more aggressive. And now he's got the weapons to be more aggressive. Does that stuff carry on? It'll be an interesting storyline for NC State. And I think the schedule's super favorable. So there's a lot of potential there, but we'll see how that shakes out.
So as you said, you're talking about your schedule. I did want to pull it up. So I think the over under they have you guys for is 8.5.
Tough.
So let's take a look at it. What are your thoughts on maybe a way too early record?
I always predict us to win every game. I'm just going to do that just because of terrible predictions. But we have some challenging games. I'll admit it.
Yeah.
The Tennessee game is going to be tough. Last time I played Tennessee, it was in Atlanta, and David Emerson got cooked, and he was an All-American corner, and that game ended poorly. Cordero Patterson just absolutely baked us that game. Okay. That game is interesting. It's not the defining game because you can lose that game and still win your conference or still be in the conference championship. So that comes down to Clemson. Obviously, at Clemson, we've beaten Clemson a few times already now. We haven't done it at Clemson. So can we go on the road and, win? It's early in the year, so kind of you don't really know what you're going to get. I'm not as high on Clemson as the prognosticators are. I don't know about you guys, but
they're down for what they've been for sure.
Yeah, and I'm not a Klubnik believer, right? I think he's a mess. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do and how good they are. I mean, they have talent; they always do. They weren't happy with Klubnik last year. They weren't happy with Garrett Riley. So how does that pan out? The rest of the schedule is pretty winnable. Northern Illinois at Wake's always been trouble for us, but I don't think they're going to be very good. Cuse at Cal, very weird. Still can't get over that. Stanford, Duke. The game, and this is not saying this because Rec Talk's here, but at Georgia Tech, we just don't do well in Atlanta, and I think Georgia Tech's going to be better this year. So that's one of those ones that, we're going to be hopefully not looking forward to Carolina and having to go on the road at Georgia Tech. Who knows what these teams look like at that point in the season, but if I'm circling one of those games, it's going to be obviously the at Clemson game and the at Georgia Tech game. Right? Those are going to be the difference makers. You can lose one of those games. You can't lose them both, I don't think, and still make the ACC championship.
Yeah, I think Georgia Tech's a wild card for sure. Tennessee, of course, is tough. And then at Clemson, you just don't know. But other than that,
it's a very favorable schedule. Like the stars align for NC State this year. If they can keep things together, I think the potential is there for them to have a really good year and make the ACC championship game. Just because I think their ACC schedule is super favorable. But you have to be sharp. You can't stub your toe.
I think the conference is wide open, really. Just on the over/under totals, they had Clemson, FSU, and Miami 9.5, NC State 8.5, North Carolina 7.5, and the one to me that really is tough, and I feel like it's a lock. If you go, I live in the state of Virginia, and so we're not actually in the state of Virginia. We can't bet on any Virginia teams. And so I'd have to leave the state to make this bet. And this sickens me to say, and I say it all the time, is I think Virginia Tech's a 7.5 over under. And I think they got the most friendly schedule in the ACC.
I love Virginia Tech this year. I think
this is their schedule. I just wanted to show it real quick. And I think one of their scarier games, crazy enough, is Old Dominion, only because it's at Old Dominion. They're 0-2 there. They for some reason
they're not losing that game. This is not the same Virginia Tech game.
That's exactly what I said last time. But but you look at the schedule and they get Clemson at home, and that's probably going to be a Saturday night game, and that's a tough environment to play in. But you look at that schedule. I hate to say I'm never feel too high on Miami, and their over under was 9.5. I feel like that's a lock to go under.
I'm with both of you guys. That's an under there. Miami's a train wreck. I know Cam Ward's good, but Mario Cristobal is going to cost them a game somewhere, and then they're
like he did last year against Georgia Tech,
right?
The thing with Miami is they got to prove that they can win at that level. It's been 20-something years. I've been in the ACC. They've made one ACC title appearance. Talent has never been their problem. They got talent this year. They've had talent for 20 years. They got to figure out how to do it. Also, I've got to ask: does every team in the ACC have an easy schedule except Georgia Tech? Like, I look at all these schedules. We play NC State, Florida State, Notre Dame. Our non-con is Georgia. The only team we don't play that's really good in the conference is Clemson. But we're on the road at Louisville, on the road at North Carolina. Now, I do want to ask you, because you're an NC State fan, and North Carolina is a sorry excuse for a football team, if I've ever seen one. They hire you. You probably saw what happened with Jeff Collins at Georgia Tech. They thought that was good enough for their DC. Do you hate North Carolina as much as I do?
I hate North Carolina more than you. I can guarantee that to effect.
Good.
Yeah. I love that they kept Mac Brown. By all means, keep that guy forever. He's going to win 7 games every year, and they're going to be irrelevant. And yeah, they're going to keep bringing in soft guy. I mean, they brought in Max Johnson as their quarterback. Good luck.
Do you know that they blacked out their spring game?
I saw that.
They're afraid someone's going to get the jump on them, which is
that can't be the reason. It really can't be the reason. I heard
they had to pay the ACC network for canceling.
They didn't want to show something. It's probably how bad they're going to be.
Matt Brown tweeted that. Yeah, he didn't want to reveal a lot of stuff. I mean, unless Mac Brown's a liar.
Yeah. I think Matt Brown's a liar. Honestly, I think he's a politician. It was very strange that they did that. It was very strange. Either they were hiding something or they're cheating and didn't want anybody to see it. I don't know.
I'll run every one of their fans off the internet before this is over. I'm going to be at Chapel Hill this year, and I'm going to look. If Collins is on the field, I'll be right behind him, and he'll know. I've already challenged him to a cage fight. That's legit. He won't do it.
I love it. I love that they always lose in Atlanta, which makes me laugh.
It don't matter where we play them. We beat them the last 3 years. Before
the hardest time with Georgia Tech. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. I need to bring both of y'all on with the Hill brothers. And we have our own cage fight on the ACC Huddle. The Hill brothers are good dudes. So Virginia and North Carolina has always been a rivalry, but it's not the same as it used to be. I don't have that hatred for them like I know you guys do, and you guys have your reasons. And Evan, I can tell you that they have the exact same hatred for y'all that you have for him.
Certainly. I mean, I know that they know it. Like, and everybody says Duke, Carolina is the rivalry. That is for 2 weeks out of the year when they play each other in basketball.
That's basketball. Yep. For football, it's you two. Yeah, that's what they say.
For football and anything else, it is State and Carolina. Like it just is. And the media won't talk about it. They don't appreciate that because we're a little old NC State. But every State Carolina game is heated. I don't care what sport it is. It is a real rivalry. I can't speak. Yeah.
Well, you might say you're little old NC State, but here's a fact. You got a better football team than them and have for 15, 20 years now.
I love it. I love that it drives them crazy.
You know the last time they won the conference?
I know they won the Coastal in 2015 or some stuff like that. It was a while ago, but they haven't won the conference since 1981.
1980.
80. Okay. I was off.
Really? Wow. I didn't realize that.
Mm-hmm.
Losers.
Well, crazy enough, and I know you said Mac Brown's going to continue to go 7 wins, 8 wins, and
he is.
When I was a teenager at UVA, we had George Welsh, and they were celebrated. They'd win seven games a year, and back then, you got to the point you're like, gosh, man, I want to do more than this, and now. Look at where we're at. I'm like, God bless it. I'd take 7 wins. Well, we're just trying to get the thing turned around. Right now, we just want to be bowl eligible.
Unfortunately, somebody's got to lose. And until Virginia gets their NIL stuff together and figures out how to get some of these kids in school academically, I think they're going to struggle.
Yeah, I think this year's team, Virginia's over-under this year is I'll pull it up 4.5. And if they're going to hit I think they could make a bowl this year. But if they're going to do it, they have to do it the first half of the season. Don't worry, Justin. Virginia's schedule's hard too.
Because this might be the harder schedule.
Virginia has to beat Richmond, Wake Forest. They really need to be like 4 or 5-0 if they're going to get to a bowl. Because then you go Louisville, you got Clemson. North Carolina at home, and the thing about North Carolina is when they're good, like last year, we were terrible, and we beat North Carolina at North Carolina on Saturday Night Football, which it stunned me.
So hilarious.
We tend to play well against North Carolina, and I'm a Commander/Redskin fan, and so that's why I was nervous at the draft. I'm like, Virginia beat y'all at North Carolina, so. We'll take Jayden Daniels, but North Carolina at home, and then at Pitt, at Notre Dame, SMU at home. They're projected to have a good year, and then at Virginia Tech could be
on the road,
right? And Virginia Tech could be the local high school down the street. They could have that as their roster, and we can't beat them, and it's frustrating. Yeah. It really nothing aggravates me more.
Like Boston College is nothing to sneeze at. That quarterback, Castanellos, it can play.
He can play.
And I'm not. And it's not a sneeze at them. It's just as you look at the schedule and like where the win's going to come.
No, I get it. Like people pencil in Georgia State for us. That ain't a given. Georgia Tech is the kind of team that will beat Florida State week 0 and lose to Georgia State. Right. That's just kind of where we're at the moment.
Yeah, and I know we talked about this before. A quarterback like Haynes King, too, as mobile as he is, those are kinds of quarterback that scares the crap out of me as a defense. But and I know I told you when we did the podcast a few weeks ago, when I was at the game, Virginia was playing Georgia Tech, and we had a 21-point lead, and we parked so far away from the stadium. I told the kids, we're going to start making our walk. It's only a few minutes to go in the game. And Georgia Tech scores a touchdown, cuts it to 14. And I'm like, Okay. I'm out of the stadium at this point. Next thing you know, they've recovered the onside kick and they've scored again.
Yeah.
I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I think they recovered 3 onside kicks.
We did. We put the cheat code in.
And we ended up, they had the Game Genie plugged into the Nintendo, and we ended up pulling it out, but it scared the bejeebies out of me. So you don't ever know. But I think the ACC is, like you said, I feel like I see some easier schedules. Virginia Tech's the one that really sickens me, because I really,
North Carolina's got a soft schedule. They might have the weakest schedule in the conference.
North Carolina I think they're 7.5 over under, and
that's embarrassing for their schedule.
Minnesota is a win, should be a win. Charlotte at home, UNC Central. James Madison's a tough game. At Duke, Pitt at home, Georgia Tech,
rebuilding.
You got at Florida State and NC State and the Georgia Tech game.
They're 2 tough games. Their only true road game is Florida State.
Yeah.
And they're at 7.5 on that. That tells you that Vegas knows what rec does.
Well, another new quarterback situation. So,
it don't matter if they have a good quarterback or not. They've had first round quarterback talent for the past 8 years.
Well, they have. Louisville's 8.5. They got Georgia Tech the third game, and then at Notre Dame. Looking at their schedule, they got to go to Clemson as well, and then Kentucky's giving them fits. I think they've lost to Kentucky 5 times in a row.
They made a liar of me last year, but I don't know. Can they do it again? They went to the conference title last year. They've got a fairly tough schedule. On the road at Notre Dame's brutal.
Right.
And then they'll lose a game. Like every team tends to lose one they shouldn't and win one they shouldn't.
Right.
Like I could see Virginia stinging them on the road. Looking forward to Miami or something.
Right. And I'm real quick. I just want to flip over to these top few teams. Clemson's playing Georgia and Atlanta to start the year. Then you got NC State the third game. They got to travel to Florida State. I mean, you look at these, and they got to travel to Virginia Tech. I don't see any way they get 9.5 wins.
Give me the under. You know what them and the Citadel have in common? They don't take no one out of the portal. That ain't going to work out in the future.
Oh, gosh. And then Florida State opening with Georgia Tech in Ireland. But they get Clemson at home. They travel to Miami. They got to go to Notre Dame. So that's why you look at a team like NC State, you look at a team like Virginia Tech, and I just think one of those is going to be there in the end. And Miami's 9.5, and I just take the under just off of the name. I say, I hate to say that. I always say the LA Clippers can't win an NBA championship because they've got LA Clippers on their chest. It doesn't make any sense. That it don't matter who they bring in. They just never win. And Miami's been that way for quite some time now.
Well, that's because they fire them after 3 years.
Yeah, I guess so.
Can you flip back over to Florida State real quick?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what Florida State has in common with something. So Florida State, give me the under on that too, because you know what they have in common with Rec Talk's ex-wife? They're both obsessed with lawyers, so they're not focused on football. I'll take the under.
Oh gosh, oh man, yeah. Then on Miami, they got obviously opening at Florida. You never know about that. They get Virginia Tech at home, but I think Virginia Tech's better. And Florida State's at home. They could go to Georgia Tech. And Syracuse is no slouch either. So
I don't know what to think about Syracuse this year. I know a lot of people are high on them, but Fran Brown's never coached a game as a head coach. I know they have a really impressive portal class, but year one head coaches tend to struggle.
Yeah. Looking at their schedule, Georgia Tech second week.
On the road at NC State.
At NC State, Virginia Tech at home. that's not the most difficult schedule in the world. But it's a new coaching staff as well, so see how they.
That's a good segue. I wanted to get your opinion, red and white, because I can't find the heights for all these coaches. I'm going to do a video on which coaches would win in a fight, because this is what I'm focused on in the off season. And I don't know how tall Dave Doran is, so I've seeded them, and I have, because I'm a Georgia Tech guy, I have a little algorithm that seeds them. So their height, their athleticism is all in there. I said Dave Doran was about 6 foot, 6'1".
He's 6'4", I believe.
He's 6'4".
He's a big guy. He's a big dude.
Well, yeah, then I'll have to adjust that.
He's seated higher
in your favor.
No, yeah, he's not a small guy. Yeah, he was defensive lineman or something in his playing career. Yeah,
he should be ranked with like Key and Cristobal. Then Fran was actually one because he had like played in the NFL and he's like one of the youngest ones. Yeah. Who do you think Dave Doran could beat in a fight?
Mac Brown. Let's go. Take it
out. Well, my fat self could beat Mac Brown.
Taking advantage of the older.
Manny Diaz is soft.
He's little too, I think.
Yeah,
he looks little.
Dabo probably just run away because he's a little biatch.
Well, Dabo would try and like proselytize to him before he fought him.
Yeah, Dave Clawson would try to sit down and negotiate and rationalize with him, like in the squared circle for sure. Let's see.
I think he could beat most of them. I think he'd have trouble with Cristobal. That'd be a good.
Yeah, Cristobal's a big guy.
Key.
Yeah, he'd probably make a mental mistake though.
He'd make a mental mistake. Yeah, he'd turn his back to him or something.
Yeah. Tony Elliott's a nerd. He's not fighting anybody.
How tall is Tony Elliott, by the way, Joe?
I'm not sure. I'm trying to find that real quick.
Yeah.
Well, I looked hard.
You couldn't find it.
I could.
Wilcox at Cal's tough. I think he's a young guy. He's a big guy. Yeah, he's a big dude.
Rhett Lashley,
I don't know about
6'4".
Yeah, Rhett Lashley, but he and Dave are buddies, so they're not gonna fight. They're homeboys. I don't know about the Stanford guy.
He's just worried about the sun and relaxing. So
yeah. I feel pretty good. Brent Pry is probably a tough matchup for Dorn. He's a younger guy. He's pretty big, I think.
Tony Elliott's 5'10"
too. He's a younger guy. Yeah, Elliott's small.
Elliott's 5'10", 195.
All right,
Dave's squishing that guy.
I think I could take Tony Elliott then. We'll see how that works.
Are you going to go to the game and challenge him? I don't remember.
Yeah, I'm gonna be like, hey man, I know this might be kind of a weird request, but I'd like to fight physically right now. I gotta find, where did I put my? I'll find it in a second. Where did I put Dave Doran in the seating? I'm gonna let people vote on it. It's gonna be up to the people.
I think he's top 6. He's not the youngest anymore.
I just didn't know much about him. Where did I have Dave? He's at 8. So I've got Fran Brown, Rhett Lashley, Justin Wilcox, Key at 4, Elliott, Norvell, Cristobal, and then Dave Doran. Obviously, Mac Brown, it's out of like 40 points. He got a 9.
Oh gosh.
He has a 0 for athleticism.
Oh man. Well, that should be an interesting poll. Where would that poll be? On Rec Talks?
I got to do it. This is a production. I've actually thought, and I might make a video game out of this, like Street Fighter 2. I've already made the pixel art for all the coaches, and I'm gonna bring, like, it's gonna be in that vein, and I'm gonna purchase a game engine. So we'll see. This is a big undertaking for me, with my grandiose thinking of what I think I can and can't do.
Love it.
But that should be fun. Oh man. Well, I think that's all we got tonight. Evan and Justin, appreciate it on. Where can we get your content at?
Go ahead, Evan.
Everybody can find us. Sorry. All my stuff's on Twitter, Red White Podcast on Twitter, and that'll get you anywhere you need to go.
Yeah, I'm at rec_talk on Twitter, and that's because my previous one got hacked by some pornographic person. So I'm underscore rec. Rec. So, like, it just sent all my followers a bunch of nonsense. Maybe they liked it. I don't know. And then on YouTube, it's just Rec Talk. You can find me there. Do a lot of stuff. Do live shows a lot. I got a few videos coming out we just talked about, so it should be a good time.
Cool. Yeah, well, that's going to wrap up the show for tonight. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to the ACC College Huddle. Please check us out on YouTube at the College Huddle Podcast and at thecollegehuddle.com for podcasts and articles about all your favorite ACC schools and other conferences as well. You can also find me and my other co-hosts on at the Cavalier Connection on YouTube or on X at Talk UVA Sports. I appreciate everyone jumping in tonight, and we'll see you guys next week.